La la li, la li, la la lu, la lu. Hello guys, hello. How's it? How's it, my people? How's it, my people? How's it, my people? Uh, you know what? I thought let me go live today, Yabon. I thought let me go live and let us first do a Q&A for maybe 20 minutes. Yabon. Let us first do a Q&A for maybe 20 minutes and then we can talk. I did say I would talk about some wars, the history of the battles for the frontiers. I agree when these people, Amabulu, arrived, all of a sudden there was a new concept of frontiers, something called frontiers. But it was not about frontiers, it was about land boundaries. So the real expropriation of land without compensation actually came from Europe. They expropriated our land without permission and without any compensation. In fact, the compensation we paid with our blood. They took our lands, and today they act as if they have amnesia when we talk about compensation without expropriation without compensation. The real expropriation, the real one, the one that actually changed the face of Africa, started in the 1600s. Heck, in the 1400s with the Portuguese. But it really took root in the 1600s with the Dutch and the Germans and the Scottish and the Irish and the Jewish and the Portuguese and the French. They came here to expropriate land, to expropriate culture, to expropriate way of life. Today, for you to get biltong, you have to buy it from them. But biltong was our thing, you know. We used to make biltong. That's exactly why we have indigenous names for it. Because it's a natural, it's an indigenous art form. Biltong. But now for you to buy biltong, you actually have to go to an Afrikaner establishment. Most likely than not. So they not only expropriated land without compensation, they expropriated culture, they expropriated way of life, they expropriated even our languages, they expropriated our sense of pride. You know, today, it's no wonder you can ask any native South African their clan names. Some are even afraid to embrace their clan names. They think it's demonic. That's how you look after you've been thoroughly expropriated. After you've been thoroughly expropriated, they expropriate even your sense. That's the true expropriation without compensation. The true expropriation without compensation. The result of that is when you are afraid of being yourself. You think your accent is wrong, so you must switch around them. You must switch to be more likable to them. You're uncomfortable to walk behind them on the road. You've been expropriated here. And I've said this before, you know, on my YouTube channel, we once spoke about apartheid and secret societies. And I said that apartheid works especially well when you are the one who propagates it against yourself. When you are the one who pushes the apartheid against yourself, it works particularly well. So it's just amazing to me how today they can have opinions on things like expropriation without compensation, forgetting that expropriation without compensation started with Jan van Riebeeck. It did not start with, it came from Europe. We didn't know that you could claim a river and make it yours. We didn't know that you could make a mountain yours. We didn't know that a coast can be private until they came to expropriate all these things from us. So South Africa is a crime scene altogether. It is literally a crime scene. We live on an expropriated property. The entire country is expropriated. That's why big corporations and elites own everything. The top 1% own more than the bottom 50%. More than the top 1% in South Africa own resources more than half of the country. Do you understand? That more than half of the country, the amount of resources, financial, property, physical, and otherwise, the amount they have is more than half the country has. So it's just amazing to me when we hear, oh no, guys, expropriation without compensation is wrong, blah, 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 blah. It's wrong. It's wrong when it addresses or redresses inequalities. It was correct all along when Jan van Riebeeck did it in Cape Town in 1652. They literally claimed the river that, look, we control this river now. You guys can go somewhere in some cave. This river is ours. This mountain is ours. This sea is ours now. That was proper compensation, proper expropriation without compensation. They own Reserve Bank. Yes, they even have shares in the Reserve Bank. They don't just own it. They literally have shares of ownership. It's a properly... They've got private ownership of the Reserve Bank of South Africa. It's crazy, man. Anyway, I want to allow you guys to... If you guys have questions, to ask them. About anything. Don't worry. Expropriation without compensation is good when done by the government of the people, not Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa is not government, most. Ramaphosa is not government. His term is coming to an end. Someone else is going to come. We're also going to say the same thing. It's not done when it's good when it's done by someone else, not this one. When it was Zuma, expropriation was good. But it's not. It must not be Zuma. You understand? Now it's Ramaphosa. We still say expropriation is good because you can't deny injustices. But it's not Ramaphosa. The next president that's coming, it's going to be the same song over again. Oh no, expropriation is good, guys, but not this president, okay? Not this one. There is no time. There is no calendar. There is no alarm clock that we are waiting for. Land must go back to the people from whom it was taken. Yes, Ramaphosa is Ramaphosa, but it doesn't matter. If the people don't say, look, guys, we've had enough, man. We are heartful. Then it's a joke. It's a joke. When are the injustices going to be redressed? People must stand up and take what is theirs at some point. But it goes deeper than just land, man. It's not just land. Ah, my goodness. It's cows. It's the goats. It's the foods. It's the mountains. There's so many things, oh my goodness, that have just been taken away from the people, man. There are so many things that have been taken away. Like, if you go back in time into proper indigenous life, the people are free. They're free to move around. You know there's a big Xhosa community in the Northern Cape. And people think those people were migrants. Those people are not migrants. Those people have been there since the 1700s. Like, before South Africa even existed, Xhosa people were in the Northern Cape. You understand? They had the freedom to move around. Just like many people from KZN went over to Eastern Cape and Western Cape. Even before the 1700s, true. Like, long ago. They were just able to... They were free, and when they got there, they knew they had guaranteed sustenance. They were going to be able to farm. They were going to be able to have animals. They would have everything they needed when they got to the Northern Cape. When people moved from Limpopo to KZN, they knew they'd be sorted even before the 1600s. Do you understand? It was so, like, we cannot even begin to understand the indigenous mind without infiltration by colonial mindsets. We cannot even begin to fathom and process the indigenous mind. And that's something I've realized in my own journey of reviving my indigenous self, my native self, my true African self. When you go into that journey, you realize that this is a lifetime thing. It's not something you can say, now I'm decolonized. No, you can't. It's a lifetime thing because you have no concept of how our people even thought, their thought process. So the deeper you go into the research, then you start to find pieces and bits of recorded conversations here and there. You find pieces of bits, even when Christianity was starting to cripple into indigenous life. Even when Christianity was starting to cripple into to creep into indigenous life, there were debates that would happen between believers and traditionalists. It's crazy. The reasoning capacity of the traditionalists is elite, man. It's elite. Like they sound so anchored. But the indigenous people, the traditionalist indigenous people sound so anchored in those days. They sounded so anchored. No, Christianity, as for where it began, honestly speaking, is irrelevant to what Christianity is in South Africa. We can debate, we can even say Christianity was begun by black people. It doesn't matter because what Christianity was used to do in South Africa is unjustifiable. Doesn't matter who was the original Christian, whether the Hebrews are black or what. Here in Southern Africa, we know what Protestant Calvinism did. Through colonialism and apartheid, we were colonized through Christianity. Whether or not the origins of the belief system are African or not, is honestly speaking, it's out of the question. What was taught to our people through the books that were printed by Western companies has nothing to do with us. What was taught is that for you to be able to be a believer, you have to stop being yourself. That is what our people were taught. And it's not just Christianity, it's Islam, even Buddhism, all these things. It's like you can't be Umxhosa, you can't be Umzulu and still believe in these things. You have to, you have to give up yourself. You have to give up yourself. And for me, that's just unjustifiable. It's unjustifiable. Anyway, a lot of people when I talk about apartheid, I always mention that Bongani Kanqoboka, absolutely we've been dumbed down. We've been dumbed down, my brother. There's no doubt about it. We've been dumbed down. We're not allowed to think for ourselves. I was once, tell you something, I almost became a pastor. And this is not a live about Christianity, by the way. But it's just, a side note. So there was a group of Maasai in Kenya who were being evangelized. People were sent to evangelize the Maasai. But the only way the Maasai could even come to listen to the preachings is if the people who were the people who were going to preach had to sort of like even change the dress code to look like the Maasai. They had to feel familiar to the Maasai. And that's the only way they managed to bring them over. Yeah, bo. That's the only way they were able to win the Maasai over. They didn't force the Maasai to change their Maasai nature to be more European. That's what I'm talking about. Cultural colonization through the facade of belief can never make any sense to me. Ever. Ronan is asking, how long should we be allowed to blame apartheid? Like, what is an acceptable time frame? The first problem, Ronan, with you is that you need permission. You need to be allowed by someone. That's your first fundamental mistake. The idea that someone must allow you to blame something. Freedom is not something you are allowed. It's something you're born with. It should be something you pursue innately within you. So for the fact that you even pose such a question that people must be allowed up to a certain point to complain about injustices is tantamount to asking a woman who has been violated, raped, like, how long shall you blame the rape that happened to you? No. Being allowed is completely out of the scope of the victims of apartheid. The victims of apartheid have every right. The victims of apartheid have every right to talk about apartheid every day for that matter. If it makes someone uncomfortable, that apartheid is being spoken about, then they should be uncomfortable. They should have thought about that discomfort when they were doing apartheid to people. If I'm an abusive man today to women, I can't tomorrow then tell women now to stop saying men are trash. You can't go and tell women to stop saying men are trash, because if you don't want to be called trash, don't behave like trash. Bloody trash. For the fact that apartheid happened, it shall be spoken about. In fact, we haven't even begun. I want apartheid to be spoken about at the very least an equivalent amount of time as the oppression took place. And we know apartheid began in 1652. I'm not talking about the apartheid of 1948. Apartheid was already happening by then. It was already happening in South Africa. Apartheid began long before 1948. Firstly, Ronan, it's like saying, what do I get by sharing my experience? What do I get by blaming apartheid? You are not blaming apartheid. It happened. If I meet you on the road, I rob you. When you say I was robbed by Sandile, you're not blaming me. You're stating a fact. So when people talk about apartheid, it's not blaming it. It really happened. Unless you have selective amnesia. Which is ingenious of you. It's inauthentic. It's not original. Maybe you should try something more original then. No, apartheid is not being blamed. Apartheid happened. Apartheid still happens to this day. That is why in Constantia, there are more white people than there are black people. And that is why in Khayelitsha, there are more black people than there are white people. Black people are not in Khayelitsha because they give birth to many kids. They are in Khayelitsha because of apartheid. Do you not know that people were being moved from Simonstown and Bishopscourt and Milnerton and Maitland and District 6 and Bokap and being sent to Langa and being sent to Nyanga and being sent to Crossroad? Do you not know that? So South Africa is where it is today because of racial discrimination, and that's it. I don't care how much you can say, oh, the ANC. No, my man. No, it's not gonna cut it with me. So we are not going to stop talking about apartheid for the next 4 generations. I want the next 4 generations to continue talking about apartheid. If it makes people uncomfortable, they must do it 10 times more. Because the people who did apartheid should have thought about that discomfort. We don't have time to be caressing crocodile tears here. If you, Ronan, you use apartheid as a crutch, then stop it. I don't use it as a crutch. I'm just stating a fact. Apartheid was done to my people. So if you feel like, oh, I'm using apartheid as a crutch, then don't talk about apartheid. I will. Don't worry. I will never stop talking about apartheid. I will never, and any South African who was a victim of apartheid should talk about apartheid openly in any space without reservation for that matter. The moment apartheid apologists start telling us what to talk about and what not to talk about, yazani, chithani nityiwe. Just know that we've already lost. Until the design of apartheid, until the effects of apartheid, until the managerial positions in the JSE, until majority of owners of resources in this country represent the numbers of the people, apartheid must be spoken about. Colonialism must be spoken about. Jan van Riebeeck must be spoken about. British colonialism must be spoken about. Racial discrimination must be spoken about. There's nothing more important than exposing this. Nothing at all. Every single day, in any school, until people can actually be able to start off from the same ground. A child that is born in Philippi, practically will never make it in this world. And a child that is born in Bishop's Court has all the resources to support them into a fruitful life. There are no chances that they will ever fail in life by virtue of where they are born alone. So if you think apartheid is being used as a crutch, perhaps you need to do some introspection. It may actually be a projection on your end. Apartheid must be spoken about. All of you in this life, you must go and talk about apartheid. Ask your parents if you've never experienced it yourself. But many of us experience apartheid every day. Every single day. They will, nowadays they've got tactics, yeah? They've got tactics now. They use different tactics. When they want to say bad things about black people, they will just replace black people with ANC. Oh, I hate the ANC, Mari. You know what they mean. You know what they mean. South Africa is a race-based society, and anyone who acts as if there are no racial biases that are at the fundament of this country. Corporate world, in South African corporate, is based on race. South African schools is based on race. Everything in this country is based on race. And the moment you act as if that's not the reality, I start to question your very intentions. We see them. About Penwell, the Black Pen. They've been trying for the past few years. They've been trying to reason with Abelung. Abelung, don't give a damn, Baba. Even if you are Penwell, the Black Pen. Baba, unye foot. You start to see yourself stressing, going live on TikTok, on Facebook. Oh, I've given up on white people. They never asked you to explain things to them. They don't give a damn. They are literally privileged. They've got everything they need. Ubusenzani wena, Bobo-chan. They see a baboon in you. You're busy trying to be the white savior. Don't be a white savior. Just deal with reality. That's it. So, to answer you, Ronan, before I move on from this, there will never be a time, at least within the next 4 generations, apartheid needs to be spoken about until the effects of apartheid have disappeared. And at this point, we have not even begun to scratch the surface. It's been 30 years already, which means there's one generation now after apartheid. There's one generation that has not experienced apartheid. Ne? But unfortunately, we haven't had any real progress. And it's not the ANC's fault. Maybe a portion of that is the ANC, but it's not really the ANC's fault. You understand? The people who still benefit from the very ANC that people act as if they hate, these businesses that act as if they hate the ANC, they benefit the most from this bloody ANC. ANC benefits the very same people who propelled apartheid, the same people who exerted apartheid and discrimination in this country still benefit from ANC, and they know who they are. Hush. They know who they are. We see them. The ANC. The ANC. Oh my goodness. But it benefits more the oppressor than the oppressed. You can't move on from something that's here, right now. Ronan, I would like to challenge you to get on your car, drive to Nyanga or Mlazi or Soweto, the depths of Soweto, or any other township. Drive there, Tembisa, Alex. Tell those people, guys, you must move on from apartheid, okay? Stop blaming apartheid, guys. Go to Tembisa, Ronan. Because it's easy to speak when you are, in the safety of your bed or your sofa, typing on your keyboard. You are detached from reality. So you're actually blowing hot air. You're not doing anything. Drive, go to Tembisa, tell the people of Tembisa to move on from apartheid. Tell them. Go to Alex, tell those people to move on from the effects of apartheid. That is their daily lived reality. I don't give a damn about coming from poverty. I'm telling you about apartheid. Apartheid and poverty are two different things. Apartheid is a socially engineered, socio-political / economic policy system. Apartheid is a system. It's not poverty. Don't minimize apartheid as if it's poverty. I come from poverty. No, Baba. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying to you, go to Tembisa. Go to Alex. Tell those people to move on from apartheid. If you can't do that, you are blowing hot air. You are blowing hot air. You're not actually serious. You are fake. So, people who are victims of apartheid should never even seek permission on how long to talk about apartheid. They should never even feel guilty on talking about. They must always talk about apartheid, and you must blame that bloody apartheid and the people who benefit from it. The children of the... You see, the people who were soldiers in apartheid, they are now running private security companies. They need to be blamed for it because they did it. You're not blaming people for something they didn't do. You understand? It's not like I'm blaming people from Finland for doing something to me. No, people from Finland didn't do anything to me. I couldn't be bothered by them or what they do. But here in South Africa, apartheid is the reason why things are the way they are. No matter how people can try to spin it as if it's an ANC thing, ANC itself is a product of apartheid. To this day, the ANC is a product of apartheid. The DA is literally a party of apartheid, Kayona. It's not even a question. We can try to spin it, man. Unemployment, this, unemployment, that. No. Doesn't change the fact that the original sins were never atoned for. We need atonement. You must atone for the sins you committed. And that's the only way that apartheid can stop being spoken about. And also that apartheid can never stop being spoken about. Actually. If people still speak about the Greek civilization right now, they still speak about the Greek civilization. People still speak about, Alexander the Conqueror, the Roman Empire. We're still going to continue talking about apartheid. It's part of our history. Anyway, I'm done with that nonsense of apartheid. Thank you, proudly South African. Thank you. No, that is very much on topic, by the way. We are like this, Tina. We are like this, Paikaya, We are like this. Anyway, let's maybe... It's true. No, apartheid is a holistic system, guys. It's finance, it's socio-economic, it's political, and religious as well. It's a system that is based upon those fundamental aspects. So it's not something that you can sort by giving people jobs. You can give everyone jobs in South Africa. You can give absolutely everyone jobs in South Africa. It's not going to change the effect of apartheid. It's not going to change it because it hasn't been changed. So to change the effects of apartheid, you need to change the things that apartheid did and reverse them. Murena, Teza, Agia Pila Kate man. Ngiyadicegela wekhethu, ngiceka buphilo. Ngiceka buphilo lami, ngiceka imabhiye lapha. Ngiyathemba ukuthi lawe liphiliye lakho wekhethu thetha. Kungenwa njani kweza classes zakho budi? How can I join your classes? Well, I do run classes, and the classes are based on indigenous languages, indigenous history, indigenous secrets. So if you want to join, you send me an inbox right now. When I'm done with the live, I will see the inbox and then I will respond to you. So we have a monthly fee of 250. The reason why it's 250 is because initially to join the classes, you had to subscribe. You had to subscribe as an elite subscriber, but TikTok is chowing the money. So I'm no longer, I don't really encourage TikTok subscription. If someone wants to subscribe, it's fine, but I'd rather just get the money myself. So you send me an inbox and then I will add you to a group of the next cohort. So the next cohort is starting in the first week of August until January next year. January next year is going to be 6 months. You guys will graduate and you should be comfortable to do what I'm doing at some level, at least. I've got about 4 people that I'm dealing with. They're in different locations. One is in the USA, South African, I guess. One is in Western Cape. One is in KZN. I don't know the other one. But yeah, you just send me an inbox if you want to join. It's video conferences. We do have a Google Drive folder. I share books, unlimited amount of books. I share dictionaries. I share audio files. I do etymological breakdowns a lot. I do enunciation and pronunciation. I teach how to pronounce the different clicks. 5 different clicks. And how the clicks move from being click intensive to having no clicks at all. So just send me an inbox and then yeah, I will explain that. But yeah, the thing is, one thing that people don't realize about apartheid is that most of the people who were in the apartheid government were religious. They were Calvinists. And they were members of the Afrikaner Broederbond. Most of the people who were in the apartheid government, at least the earlier administrations, they were Calvinists, which means they believed in this doctrine that South Africa is their fatherland. They are the chosen people to come to South Africa. They did not believe that you must take away jobs. So creating jobs is not actually fixing the core problem that was created by apartheid. It was based on the idea that these people came here because this was their fatherland. They were sent here to be freed like the Israelites. So for me, the undertones of apartheid, the unspoken part of apartheid, is the fundamental belief that the people who were committing apartheid were actually divinely inspired to commit apartheid. That's what they are not saying loudly, but that's what they actually believe. They believe that when they were doing apartheid, they were doing God's work. That's why they say, you are supposed to go and fetch water for them. You are supposed to go and hew wood for them. Hewers of wood and fetchers of water. Hendrik Verwoerd. His words, not mine. That's a biblical reference. The exact same thing that's happening in Gaza today is the very core idea of what they really wanted to do and still want to do to this day in South Africa. So the true goal of apartheid is nothing to do with separate development. The true goal of apartheid was to replace the indigenous people. And there were many attempts that were made. And one of those attempts was to say the indigenous people are actually not indigenous. The indigenous people are from Congo today. Tomorrow, the indigenous people are from Sudan. The next day, the indigenous people are from West Africa. It changes depending on the mood of whichever colonizer is saying it. So the core obsession here is to alienate the people of the land from the land itself. And you guys may think it's ridiculous. You may think, it's ridiculous, it will never work. It actually works, Because if you tell a lie enough, it starts to look like the truth now. It works. It may not work on one generation, but on the next generation, the idea starts to seem more sensible. On the generation after that one, 3 generations down the line, that lie that you told initially as propaganda has taken center stage now. Like we are seeing right now. Authors, researchers were funded to write books that South African people are not from South Africa. In the 60s, in the 50s, it seemed ridiculous at that point. Today, we're in 2025, and you've got many South Africans who really think they're not from here. They're paying big monies. Just a few hours ago, I saw a South African who paid like 3,000 Rand to do some ancestry test. And guess what? The results only showed South Africa. Only South African ethnic groups, so-called Bantu, so-called Khoisan, doesn't matter. Why did that South African feel the need to go and do an ancestry test when we know who we are? It's because the lies that were told in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, now in the 2000s have gained so much traction that they are being legitimized by collaborators and those who wish evil upon South Africans. So even South Africans now don't know who they are anymore. They need Ancestry.com to tell them who they are. Imagine. South Africans now need to go to Ancestry.com to know, oh, am I truly South African? Morman, why do we have systems of clan names? Why do we have systems of clan praises? Why do we have systems of kinship? Why do we have clans and groups and ethnic communities if you still want to go and pay 3,000 Rand to see your ancestry? Because lies that were told 50 years ago are starting to make sense to some people now. I've read a book that says the languages of South Africa are from West Asia. I've read a book that says the languages of South Africa are from West Africa. I've read a book that says the languages of South Africa are from Central Africa. Which one is true? None of them. And also none of them care about being true. All they care about is distancing the indigenous people from any kind of truth, from belonging here. So that is the essence of apartheid. Apartheid. Apartness. A state of being separated, state of being apart, a state of dissonance. The cognitive dissonance that you see and you experience. You don't feel attached to your land. That's apartheid in action. You go to Table Mountain, you feel uncomfortable. It's almost like it must only be Europeans who are enjoying those things. That's apartheid right there. That is literally apartheid right there. That's what it is. That's what it does to its victims. You live in a state of imposter syndrome. It's like an imposter in your own life. And even if you have a job, that effect of apartheid is not gonna go away because you work. You could even be a CEO of a company for that matter. You could even be a CEO, you could even be the president of the country, but apartheid is still inside of you. Mandela, uDalipunga Mandela, the former president Nelson Mandela, he admitted it expressly. Nelson Mandela said when he saw that his pilot was a black man, he was so scared. Nelson Mandela, he still had apartheid in him. So the idea that having a job, you're going to stop feeling apartheid. No, Baba, you carry it on your back. Siv, you look like the person behind you. These are our people, man. These are our people. This is an Awen woman. You find a lot of them in Botswana, together with Naro people. You find a lot of them in Botswana. There are many there. I put this woman here because she looks exactly like my late sister. She looks exactly like my late sister. I've got many sisters, but only one late sister. And she looks exactly like her. So I thought, let me just put this lady, man. And if you look at this lady and you look at this gentleman, they actually look the same to me. They have a resemblance. This gentleman is Tembu. This lady is Owen. They have a very strong resemblance. I like to put these pictures here because you cannot doubt who these people are and who they look like. It's very clear. It's as clear as the day. So the question of apartheid is not a question of joblessness or high or low unemployment rate. We could even have zero unemployment rate and still have the impact of apartheid, still feel the effects of apartheid. Having a job is not going to change the fact that most South Africans still need to travel from Soweto to Johannesburg, still need to travel from Soweto to Sandton. It's not going to change that. So apartheid is not something that you can just, it's not like a blister that you can cover with a plaster called employment or a plaster called tender. Tenders, employment don't change apartheid. Employment is something that it's a basic part of an industrial society. Everyone has to have some kind of job. That has nothing to do with apartheid. Even in countries where there was no apartheid, people still need jobs. So don't connect things that are not connected. So when they say, oh no, the government must create more jobs to stop the effects of apartheid, no. Creating more jobs doesn't stop the effect of apartheid. Creating more jobs just means people have more money to spend and save. But in the case of South Africa, it's more money to spend because nobody's saving. How can you save 4,500 a month? How can you save that? Majority of South Africans earn less than 5,000 rand, man. So job or no job, the apartheid still needs to be spoken about. I see there are some questions there in the comments. Where was Mount Zion? Where is Mount Zion? Let me look at the next one. Is the Nyakama a Xhosa surname? Xhosa are from East Africa. When I ask from which country, there is Xhosa tribe. No answer. Nah, there's no Xhosa in East Africa, man. Xhosa are in South Africa. And then you may find pockets of Xhosa people in Zimbabwe or Xhosa speaking people in Zimbabwe and Botswana. Xhosa people are from South Africa. There's no Xhosa people in East Africa. Never has been, never will be. Never has been and never will be. Nyakama. Nyakama is a Xhosa word, Mosagir. Nyakama. Yeah, Herero people are an ethnicity actually. Herero are an ethnicity in Namibia. We actually had a Herero brother in one of the lives. He explained the name Herero as meaning they went away to the direction of Angola. Bayire or something like that. Bayilele, basically. They went away. They went that other side. So Nyakama is a South African last name. Nyakama means most to be moist. It means to be moist, to be wet. Like when the land is moist or wet, we say umhlaba unyakamile. That's what it means, to be moist or wet. And I think that's the thing. You know, some of these clan names and last names, people now don't understand their origin because they don't speak the language. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you so much. They don't speak the language. Abelungu balapha namakhaladi, those groups you shouldn't listen to. They have no right to even speak about South African people. Thank you, Nyama. Abelungu namalau have no right to even speak about the people of South Africa. So you shouldn't even listen to them. They're deluded. They are heavily deluded. The focus should be on learning as much as you can about your people. I see a lot of South Africans being bothered by what Amalau have to say about abantu abantsundu, about amaXhosa and amaZulu. To me, it's not important. I'm not gonna lie. Ilau cannot tell me anything. So someone is asking about the Mbonde clan name. So here's the thing, ne? Here's the thing. Between isiZulu and isiXhosa, sometimes there's an issue of clan name and last name. For example, Mbonde. Mbonde, yabo. If it's Xhosa, it's definitely a surname from the word Gubonda. So Imbonde, it's probably someone who mixes things up. Or Ovayo, who causes chaos. If it's, what I know is that kwisiZulu, bakhona abantu bakwaMbende. They are related to abantu bakwaSibiya, bakwaKhomo, bakwaQwabe. Yeah. So if it's Xhosa Mbonde as a surname, then you still need to know what clan name that is, because surname doesn't tell us much, because it's just the name of someone who was living. Another question. Ancient Egyptian, it sounds like Twa. No, I've said it many times that the languages of Kemet, pre-dynastic Kemet, comes from sub-Saharan Africa, and the language is obviously, if you go back 3,000 years ago, it's gonna sound like a click language. Even the language of Kemet, even South African languages, any language, Chivenda, Xitsonga, all of them, if you go back 3,000 years back, they all sound like, ilwimi zabathwa. In fact, still on the issue of language, today there are things that we don't understand how they could possibly happen, because there's dialects that have sort of like died out. I was thinking earlier about the word in isiZulu. The word in isiZulu, isihlama. Isihlama. Because in isiXhosa, isihlama does not exist, but they have isichama. You guys know what isichama is and isihlama. It's the exact same word. In isiZulu, isihlama. In isiXhosa, isichama. There's an interesting reason why there's that sound difference, because the isihlama of isiZulu is actually a remnant of isilala. Now, isilala, sometimes for in some words they use for they use for, sometimes they use. For example, when you say ukuhlaba, in isilala they say ukukhaba, nzokhaba, ntokukhaba, ntokhaba, yabo. And then when abenguni say umlilo, in isilala they say unilo. You understand? Unilo. Unilo lovuthako. Umlilo ovuthayo. And then isilala you have words like imbwa. Imbwa is a dog. Which in so-called Goli today, it's inja. But in isilala bati imbwa. And if it's plural, it's timbwa. Yabo. Yes, you have balete. Balete baze nkosini, balete nkosi. And bayete. In fact, even it goes even far, like ukulala in kwisinguni or isintungwa, ukuyaya in isilala. There are many groups that spoke like this, like amandwandwe, bakwamhlongo, bakwangcobo, bakwangcolosi. They a lot of them spoke like this. Ukulala, ukuyaya. Ukubeletha, kubeyetha. You understand? There's another interesting one where Z is replaced with Y. Ukuyeyeza still. KwaDlamini, emazizini, there's a group of people called Odlamini bakwaLamyeni. Lamyeni. It's interestingly Lamzeni in isiZunda. It's Lamzeni. But in Isiyeyeza, when they do the Yeyeza speech, they say Lamyeni. So they remove the Z and put the Y. So it confuses people sometimes. In old books. They will see in one book that is written in one area of South Africa, they don't have the word Lamyeni, they have Lamzeni. But another book have Lamyeni. And then it confuses people. No, it's the same word. It's just that one book was written with Isiyeyezo or Islala, another book is Isizunda or Isixhosa and Isizulu. Yabo. So there are many, many, many words like this, like timbwa for dogs, izinja, imbwa. Ulanga actually is also called uyanga. Uyanga. So the people of Soshangane, the people of Soshangane, the ones who left with the Soshangane, they called Ulanga Uzwide Galanga. They said Uzwide Gayanga. And they called Unumalo Unumayo. Numayo. So they are the people of Uzwide Gayanga. Even better, I have a person that I know, waMadzikane, but he's one of the people who left with Soshangane. So they don't have Mchunu. Instead, they put N, they remove N and put L, so it's Mchulu. That was interesting to me. And I asked him, my brother, what is Mchulu? He's like, no, Mchulu is actually Mchunu, but we don't use Mchunu. So it's clear even in some of the groups that left South Africa, the way they speak tells you that they did not speak the modern dialects today. They don't speak the modern dialects today. Like Amandebele says Zimbabwe. Sometimes when they say it's cold, they don't say kuyabanda. Instead, bathi kuyaqanda. So Kumandebele says Zimbabwe ukubanda kuqanda. And I found a similar word, kusiphuthi. They don't say kuyabanda, bathi kuyaqanza. You see? So it's testament to the linguistic diversity that has actually sort of like been diluted, reduced because of standardized languages. Let me go deeper. When we were younger, I realized that I spoke really interestingly words that I don't use anymore, and I'm starting to sort of like revive those words. For example, when something cracks, when I was younger, we used to say iyachachamba. Chachamba is the word we used for something that cracks. It's cracked. Ichachambile. When you're hitting someone, we used to use the word ukuncucha. Yabo. When you're throwing something, we used to use the word ukugaya. When you miss, if you throw and miss, we use the word ukuqwitya. Ugayile waqwitya. Ugaye waqwitya. Or uyigayile wayibetha yachachamba. So you threw, you hit it and it cracked. But even more, there are words we consider tsotsital. Words like ukucisha, to die or to unalive. Words like ukuchaya, to finish. Words like ukucanda, to eat. It's only now that I'm older that I realize, no, man, these words are not actually tsotsital. They are some of the oldest versions of speaking. Yabo. Some of the oldest versions of speaking. Hey, my daughter. I remember my sister, when we were growing up as young kids, we didn't want to do anything. We didn't want to work. We didn't want to do house chores. So my sister, the eldest one, would say, hey, Nina, kutheni nisoloko nithe qheke amagqenene. Nithe qheke amagqenene. Hey, I was like, qheke amagqenene? Now I realize amagqenene is actually those two things there. You understand? So qheke means to open. Amagqenene is those two things, the little ball-like structures. So she used to be angry at us and tell us, Musani ukuthi qheke amagqenene apha, sebenzani. So she's like, hey, don't open your balls here, go and work. But she found a way to use, interesting language. And as we grow older, I think we lose, I think we lose that way of speaking. And it's dangerous because we lose even the reasoning behind using those words. Like Nyamatsatse is saying, the reason those words are good to use because those words are ideophones. Which means it's a sound that is related to the action or the state of being. You understand? The sound is related to the action. That's why when we say it's raining, we say iyanqaza. Iyanqaza from the word ka, for the sound of rain, ka, to fall down. So sithi iyaqaza imvula. Therefore, that's why even waterfalls are called onoqaza or onoqaza. In fact, in KZN, there's a place known as Howick Falls. The indigenous name is not Gaza, because Gaza is actually the word Gaza, from a word that means to fall down. So the words we used to use back in the day were very much ideophones. That is to say, there were words that were sounds that gave an idea of what the action is. That's why amaXhosa say for a waterfall they say ngqangqasi. Ngqangqasi, same thing. Ukugqagqaza. You see? That's why even flip-flops, Tina City, go pack. Because Gandlati is a waterfall, Mukarang. Pack. It's the sound that the flip-flops make. It's literally the sound that the flip-flops make. It is a wave, ne, Mukarang. I get you, brother. I get you. So, that's the thing about language, ne? If you let it die now, you lose those primordial. I don't want to use the word primitive, because some people don't understand what it means. They will think it's an insult, but primitive is not an insult. Those primitive ways of speaking are clear. You don't even need to attach too many things to them. They don't need too many conjunctions. They don't need too many words to be affixated. They don't need suffixes and all that. The words they literally are the meaning. Yes, primitive means the first. So when you say ititu, you're literally telling the person to keep quiet. Ititu, tula, utitu. The crazy thing is when you say tula and when you say tu, ititu and tula is the exact same word. In fact, some people say ititu. I will explain. The way we structure our words, tula, pila, pola, bula, ula, that la at the end, I want to explain what it is. It is a suffix that is attached to imperative verbs. What are imperative verbs? Imperative verbs are verbs that sort of like instruct you to do something. So when you say whatever the word is and you attach la at the end, like pola, tula, that means the word alone doesn't have la as a part of the word. You have just attached it to give the meaning that do this action. No, pula is not a suffix now. Pula is a noun. Pula is not a verb, it's a noun. So that's a different word. Bala, on another hand, is a verb. So this suffix is attached to verbs. Kula, exactly. It's a very good example, because when you say kula, it's an instruction. You're telling someone to do what? To cool. Cool. So cool is to grow. That's why we use it sometimes to say kuku, ma, kukuma, or kukumala. Kukumala, kukula, kula. Ubukulu, being big. Now that bukulu is taken from kula. Kula comes from the primitive root word ku. Tula comes from the primitive word tu. That's why you're saying now, iti tu. When you're telling someone to be quiet, you can use it in the sense that iti tu, or you can use it as tula. Do you get it? So a lot of words were originally single sounds. What we do now in our languages, as we evolve linguistically, we reduplicate the word. For example, it is zu or zula means to move around. Now, when we want to emphasize the meaning, we reduplicate the word over and over again. We either duplicate the last syllable or the full word. So from the word zula, which comes from ukuti zu, when we say zula, it means to move around. When we say zula zula, to move around again and again. Yeah, so this explains now why sometimes we don't say the actual word, but we say the primary stem of the word. So instead of saying tula, we'll say ititu, ititu. Because tu or tu is the actual meaning. It's the primary stem that is not modified. You understand? That's the primary stem that is not modified. I'm looking for another example. Sorry. I'm looking for another example. Oh, when someone is passed on, we go to their house. What do we say when we get there? To them, we say tutwini. Akuhlanga lungehliyo. Some people say akuhlanga lungehlanga, which means what has happened today is something that always happens. It's not the first time. So tutwini or dudu, and this is where the word tutu, zela, and dudu za come from. They come from the word do and do, which mean quiet, silence. So when you're saying now tutwini to the people who are mourning, what you're really saying is that we are here to comfort you so that you become quiet, meaning you don't cry. And that's exactly where names like Mduduzi and Ntutuzelo come from. They come from one primary stem, ukuti tu or ukuti du. When you take the word tu or du in its primary stem, guess which languages you're going to find that word in? The so-called Bushman languages. The word tu in its primary stem verbal form, you go to Kwinkia, you find it. When they say quiet, they say tu. Which means they speak literally in a primordial form, which we've since abandoned. Well, my mother hasn't abandoned it. She speaks like that, which is amazing. She speaks like that. Now, itutu as a thief. Think about what a thief does. A thief is someone who steals and we are so that you don't see them or you don't hear them. So in a way, yeah, they are related. So these are verbs that use a strong primary stem, which means they don't need like suffixes and all that. You use them in their original way. And it's important, it's very important that we understand. It's very important that we understand this as native speakers. Now, ntutuko comes from a different word now, which is not related to tu for quietness, but rather to tutu for rising up. Ntutuko comes from another word which means tutula. Thank you, Susan. Comes from the word which means tutula. In fact, there was a war in Xhosa history. There was a war, they call it ekatutula, imfazwe katutula. Tutula means to raise up something. So if you want to improve society, sit ututula umphakathi or ututukisa umphakathi. Thank you, Sipho. Thank you so much. So sometimes when we use words, we think Sipho itself is the word. No, there's only one word there. Po. Si is only a prefix. That's why we can still change the prefix to Z. It becomes Zipo. You can still change this prefix to Lu. It becomes Ulupo. That's the act of giving. So you can have Isipo, Izipo, Ulupo. But po remains the same because po is the actual word. It comes from an earlier form, which is a verb, pa. Now, younger is an interesting one because younger is not a verb actually. Younger is not a verb. Younger say means may. It means may. So when you're wishing for something, may it happen. Younger ingenzeka. So it can be a verb sometimes. In this sense, it can be a noun. So if I say, basically it's a way to request something politely or to give permission politely. Nondwa is amako. So if I say, as a modal verb, if I say, it may rain later today. Nganetha. So nga gives you sort of like, it's a modal verb in this case. It tells you that it may happen. Yanga inkosi ingasipha izipho zethu. May the king give us our gifts. Now that's a polite request. That's a mobile verb. So sometimes names are just parts of longer sentences. That's the case with younger. It's just a longer sentence. And it's true, our languages are also very tonal. So they are very heavily dependent on context. For example, the name Nondwaiza. You see, let's do a breakdown of this name. Udwayi is something that is laying there in the open. Something that is laying, like if you take a flag, a banner, a long banner of something, a strip of cloth, and you lay it there openly. We call it udwayi. In fact, we use the word udwayi also to, let's say, you drink a lot and you fall on the side of the road. We say, udwayi butywala. So udwayi is in essence that. But udwayi also is something very tall, like a tall person. It's like they're being blown by the wind when they walk. Now, when you take udwayi as a noun, you change it into what? Into a verb. We have ukudwayiza. Ukudwayiza. You see, people who sleepwalk, who wake up from their sleep and walk around, we say by a dwayiza, like moving around as if you're being blown by the air, by the wind. Or if you walk like a toy person, it's similar to ukudwanguzela. If you walk like a tall person, you walk in huge strides. Thank you, Tabang. You walk in huge strides. Sithi uyadwayiza or uyadwayizela. To walk aimlessly about. So now uno when you use no in a word, especially if it's a noun, no is a naming prefix. It's a naming prefix. It's a compound prefix that we use to name things. It doesn't have to be a female all the time. Sometimes it's specific to females, unina wo, but sometimes it could be a man. There's a man I know who was called Nomagak. There's a man I know who was called Nomayala. You understand? So it's not male or female, it's just a naming prefix. So when you say no, you're saying a person of this characteristic. Undwayiza is someone who walks with long strides. Ophangayo when they walk. Or someone who has long fingers. Basically, it has to do with something long, or someone who likes to walk around, someone who's always all over the place. Yabon, uyadwayiza. Tina ke, where I'm from, we use that to say, oh, unondwayiza lo. Unondwayiza. Yabo. As I said, it depends on the context. Names can be used differently. This person is saying, my aunt's name was Mandungwana. What does it mean? Thank you, Tabang. Well, Mandungwana, remember, it's a clan name. Dungwana is a clan. It's a clan. So, Mandungwana is a clan name. So, this person was probably Umandungwana. In Sesotho, hutwaila is to walk alone. But long strides is kwaila. Yeah, nondwayiza. Yeah, pap. That's why they called you nondwayiza. Yeah, pap. Yeah, pap. My brother, Peach Munyamrat. How are you, brother? I haven't seen you, brother, in a long time. So Mandungwana is a clan name of the people known as Amandungwana. Yabo. Amandungwana. Now we have to go to what it means ukudunga. Ukudunga is to disturb, is to shake up things. For example, they call King Mswati ulodvunganzaba or unodungandaba because udunga indaba. So where his enemies are coming together to discuss him, by just the mentioning of his name, he disturbs that whole thing. He mixes them up, he confuses them. Uyamadunga. So ukudunga is to disturb, whether it's a secret council, people who are talking about you. So the way kings are named, they are named in that context. So Undungwane was a person who lived, I think, in the 1700s, if not late 1600s. In fact, Undungwane welcomed my people amongst Abatembu and made them part of his kingdom. So Undungwane means the one who confuses his enemies, the one who mixes them up. And abantu bakwaBhanqo, the Bhanqo people, those people are ngabathwa. Ngabathwa abantu bakwaBhanqo. Amantshilibe. Intshilibe is a kind of plant, by the way. But let me go back to my point about languages. So we have a class of nouns in our indigenous languages, class of verbs and nouns that can be used alone. But we're not familiar with that because we are used to adding stuff to those words. So we add stuff, prefixes, suffixes, verbal forms, etc. I'll give you an example. Uno in front of words, when you put no in front of words, that's a prefix already. When you put ma in front of words, manqindana, umakhathini, Mandela, madikizela, already you are not dealing with the original word here. For example, madikizela, it sounds like a long word, but the word that carries the meaning is only diki. Diki is the actual word there. Because diki comes from the sound. You see, when you have vibrations on your muscles or when there's some kind of earthquake, we call that ukuti diki. Diki, diki. It's that sound of shaking. Like when your eye is twitching. Little diki, 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 diki. So the surname Madikizela is taken from that word to thunder, to shake. Diki. Ukuti diki. That's the real meaning there, diki. Now, because we are using it now, not as a verb, but as a naming word. So you will put ma in the beginning, and ma is not always feminine. It's feminine if you attach it to a clan that already exists. So I'll give you an example. You are born emabeleni. So a man is umbele. A female is going to be uma mbele. So it's attached to a word that already exists. So now, to signify femininity, you add ma. In that sense, it's for feminine reasons. But if you're just using it nje from a normal word like ukuthi diki, to shake, to thunder. Ukuthi diki, to shake, to thunder. If you want to name someone now, you can use ma as a compound prefix, which has not anything to do with gender. It's just a compound prefix. Makhathini, it's not female or male, but obviously, historically, Makhathini is a male. Majola, it's not female or male, but historically, it's a male. But it could be other things as well, like there's a snake. There's a snake that we call Majola. It's a snake. You understand? Mabaso. You see, Mabaso is even worse because Mabaso is literally plural for amabaso, like sticks that are used to bas. So izinkuni xa uzihlonipha ungathi ngamabaso. Ngiyabona? Ameva xa uwahlonipha ungathi ngamabangulo. A spoon xa usihlonipha ungathi liwako. Ash, Blue Moon, how are you? So when you the name Madikizela, then how you create that word? You take the strong primary stem diki, ne? To shake, 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 shake. You add the compound prefix ma, you end up with madiki. But now diki itself, if you wanna change it to isiqando sokwenzela, you add zela at the end. So you have madikizela, which means the person associated with ukudikizela. Ukudikizela means to shake, to thunder, to quake when there's an earthquake, to quiver. Yes. So therefore, the word madikizela literally means the one who causes thunder. The one who causes thunder. There's a bird. We call it a pink grass warbler. It's called unonqane. Unonqane. Why is it called unonqane? Because the bird chirping sounds like. So we say unonqane. No is just there to make the word nga a noun. Nga is a sound. So if you want to make it a noun, you add no. So we have to be able to get to this level when we deal with language. And this is how you understand how words move between different languages. It's how you understand how words move between Sesotho, Setswana, Sepedi, between isiZulu, isiXhosa. I made an example yesterday. Thank you, Plumon. About the word maqhubu for waves of the sea. KaSesotho. Bariki maqhubu. And I will explain to you how this word relates to the Springbok. Maqhubu, ki maqhubu, waves of the sea. Right? Okay. AmaXhosa, when you swim, they say quba. Maqhubu, ukuquba, or ukuthi qubu. 2. AmaZulu, when you wash your mouth, they say quba. So quba, liqubu, it's all words that have to do with water. But not just water, but water that is splashing, like the waves. Foamy water. Because when you quba, the water is foamy. You are shaking it in your mouth. You are quba. So maqhubu, waves. They are foamy. Ukuquba, shaking up the water. Ukuquba, shaking up the water. The words are basically related to an older ideophone, which is qump, which has to do with water sounds. When something enters water, it is qump. So maqhubu, ukuquba, although they mean 3 different things in 3 different languages, the root is the exact same thing. That's why if you go to languages like Quinkia, you find, you see these languages, these old click languages, they unite our modern languages because all these words that we use, they are used as well. So you find khub is used for waves of the sea. Khub is used for the Springbok. Why? Because the Springbok is literally on its flanks. The color pattern looks like the waves. The white color pattern looks like waves. Which is interesting because in isiZulu esidala, they use the word iqulu for a springbok. Which is also interesting because in Qora, qulu means what? The waves of the sea. Which is also qub. I don't think you guys understand what I just said. I don't think you understand what I just said. The word qub, maqhubu, it's the waves of the sea. It's water. It's foam in the water. That's why when we use this word, we use it relating to water, like to swim, ukuqubha, isiXhosa. To wash your mouth, shake up the water, splash the water, ukuqubha. But qhubu means also springbok, because if you look at the flanks of the springbok, the pattern is literally like a wave. But anyway, the springbok has something called a fonk on its back. It has something called a fonk on its back. When it gallops, that fonk forms into this wavy, white, puffy thing. Ulu means the springbok, but Ulu also means the waves of the sea. In fact, if you go to the Qora language, they have urib and qub for the waves and the springbok as well. So qhubu, amaqhubu and amaqhubu or ukuqubha and iqulu are all words that are related. It's just dialectical adaptations. This is what I offer in some of the sessions that I do privately. This is what I offer. I show you clearly the transition between the different click sounds. You understand? Someone is asking me about the surname Matome. Hey, I have trauma when it comes to that surname. I once had a landlord who was called Matome. Hey, that guy, he was the worst. He was a mupedi. Hey, he used to drink every day, that one. He was in the army, in the navy. Yo, he traumatized me. Matome. Yo. But let me maybe finish what I was saying. So when we are able to understand the stems of words, then we'll be able to understand the meanings. I'll give an example with the name Madzikane. It actually comes from a word, two. Idzike or idike. Because, by the way, Madzikane also exists in, it's a Xhosa and it's Impondo Mise, etc. It's Madikane. Idike is what we call ichibi. It's a lake. Could be a lake of fire, like iziko. Yabo, iziko lomlilo. It could be a lake of water, it doesn't matter. But Madzikane means little lake. So it could be a little fireplace or a little pool of water. It's also related to the word isiziba, which in Sotho they say madiba or madibeng, ezizibeni. Yabo. So it's something that has to do with a flame, a lake, isiziba or ichibi. All these three words, by the way, isiziba, ichibi, idike, and iziko, are all related, these words. Yabo. So Madikane then means little lakes, men of little lakes, or little fireplace. So Omadikane and Omadzikane, same word, different dialects. I've been asked Undoyi before. But I don't know what language that is. That's why I couldn't answer that question. I remember being asked Ndoyi before. I think it's something I have to look for, actually. I know Ntoile and Ntoisa. Ntoisa exists in Sesotho. But I'm not sure what language it is. Yabon. I'll probably find it out for you. But the thing is, the reason why I'm saying I don't know why it is, the spelling doesn't seem Nguni to me. Yeah, bo, it doesn't seem Nguni. So it could be another language. But I do know that totoi is in reference to insects like amaphela, like ipela. Cockroach is called totoi when you respect it, like isihlonipho sika toitoi. Yeah. Camga. Ndumiso is asking me what camga means. Camga means to speak softly. So you see, let's say you are meditating, né? You are doing incantations, or you are praying slowly, like with a low volume. We call that ukucamga. Camga. Come, think about the word camta, to speak, and think about the word for little, to speak little. Camga, to speak in a low voice. So xa sinqula sicamga, sinqula uqamata, siyacamga. So yeah, ukucamga is to speak with a low voice, and to meditate is ukuqiqa. So xa uqiqa ucamga, unqula kuqamata, you meditate, talking in a low voice, and asking or praying to Qamat. So that's what Kamda means. That's what it means. Let me check if there's another question that I'm missing here. Mnga ndwendwe. First time seeing that word. Mnga ndwendwe. Qwathi noluthungu. Qwathi is an interesting one because people say it's a color of a cow with white ears, a dark color and white ears. Iqwathi longomo. I don't have a problem with that. I also don't have a problem with a cow that is qwacha. Those are colors. But we need to remember Qwathi is a name of an ethnic group. It's not a name of a cow. It's a name of an ethnic group. So what I realized is that Qwathi is in reference to people who wear loincloths like izibheshu. Yabo. Qwathi is izibheshu, like people who wear izibheshu in essence. Imiqwetho. Yeah. Ndingatsho abantu bemiqwetho. That would be my meaning of Qwathi. Yabo. Umnqandwendwe. Nqandwendwe. I don't know what it is. But what I know is that in isiZulu, when you're asking someone, umuntu uqandwe yini? Ukuqandwa is to be attacked or to be bothered by something. So umnqandwendwe would be someone who's always bothered by something, someone who's easily irritated. Because by the sound of the word itself, umnqa, which means the action is happening to this person. Umnqandwendwe. Ndwendwe is an emphatic. Yabo. Lupindapindo. So it's an emphatic. Someone who's bothered, someone who's angered. It's similar to the Xhosa word igqalagqala. Yabo. Igqalagqala. Anyway, let me go back to what I was saying. I want to give you guys examples of strong stems that do not need suffixes. We have many strong stems that do not need suffixes. When my mother, for example, says the house is warm, she will rarely use the word ukufudumala or ubushushu or ukuchisa. She will use another word, ukuthi indlu ithe gunqu. So she uses the word gunqu to mean warm. Do you understand that gunqu is just a word standing alone? There's no suffix or prefix, but you have the, what is this? The conjunctional adverb. You have the adverb ukuthi. You are fixated in front of the word. So indlu ithe gunqu, the house is warm. Abantu bathe zole. Zole means to be silent and orderly. Zole is the stem, is the root word for the word we say ukuzola. Ukuzola. The meaning of the word kweta. Kweta means, it means someone who's still learning something, someone who's still young, who's still new, learning something. But kwe, remember, kwe also means person. Ne? So kwe is someone. Kweta, someone who's becoming fully ripe, basically. Someone who's becoming fully ripe. Yeah. So a student can be called umkweta. Honestly, a student can literally be called umkweta. That's why even itwasa is still called umkweta. And then ikhwala comes from the word ukukhwala, to be red, to turn red, to ripen. So ikhwala then means the one who's ripening. And then ikaba, it comes from the word khawb, which means a young man. And then ikhego or khegu, it means an old person. It means an old person. And then gwati or gwatu, it means females. Zikwat. It means a man. But that's enough for today. That's enough for today. So all these words have meanings. There's no way that they are meaningless words. Yabon? They all have very, very, very clear meanings. All of them. But what I'm trying to get to is that akhona amagama, there are words, especially in the speech of older people, that are not accompanied by any suffix or prefix. I want you to pay attention to those words, because those are the words that are showing you how our ancestors used to speak. I told you that when we say keep quiet, we can say tula. But an older way is to just say tu. Literally one sound, tu or du. Which is exactly why we say dudwini or tutwini. When we talk to people who are mourning, say tutwini, which means be quiet, my people. Ngwana, ngane doesn't mean little nguni. No, it doesn't mean little nguni. It just means something small. It could be anything. It doesn't even have to be a human. So words like ngwana, ngwane, ngane come from, they are real words, but there are other older words. For example, ngwane or ngane. There's another word that we use, itwane, which means a descendant of something, a little one, ngane, into ngane, a small one of something, itwane. So we could say, for example, when a snake has amantshontsho enyoka, I don't know what it's called in English. So we say amachwane enyoka. Ichwane, same word for a sheep. Yabon. A little lamb, we call it ichwane. And then in Kwi, it's ane for a child. So all these words, ngane, ngwana, honestly speaking, it's the same thing, man. It just means little one. That's what it means. Even nyana means little. From ngane or ngane. Nyana means little. That's it. Little what? Little person or little version of a person. Unyana, for example, umkwe nyana. Exactly. Little person. That's what nyana is. So amaXhosa use nyana is just to say mkwenyana. A small person. Yabo. So it's that's it. That's what it just means, small. I remember last year I did a video on Tsotsital. Words like ngosi mean the exact same thing. It's a snippy, so indeed. The word ngosi means small. It means small person. It could be small anything. That's why in order they have ngosi, they have ngobi. for a male. For a female, they say ngosi. For plural, they say oba or ngoba. Ngona, sorry, ngona. You see. So, different communities adapt these words differently for their purposes. Some words are used more prominently in one language and less in another language. If I hear someone who's from Emampondweni, if I hear them speaking, I'm generally hearing an old version of isiXhosa when they speak. If you hear someone who's from deep villages, you hear an old version. Yeah, bo. So yeah. But the words themselves are usually coming from the same root. Anyway, before it gets too late, because it's a week, it's midweek, I'm gonna cut it off here. Remember, if you wanna join the weekly classes that I do, 6-month program, feel free to inbox me. I'll continue tomorrow, I hope. I'll see you then. Thank you, guys. Those who have questions I didn't answer, Askis, it's late. I need to get some rest. I'm signing out now. My name is Sandile. Vukani-Tsogang. wasemamfeneni. NdingumSuthu mna. Ndinguhlathi, ndingujambazi. Ndinguncagala, ndingucanzi, ndingusandlalanca. Ndithoka ngobulembe entabeni. Ndehla ngomva elweni. Amagu. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.